Hi Redemption family, thank you guys so much for joining us today. So on our parent talk today, I'm really excited. We actually have with us Blake Feagans, and I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about himself and what it is he does.
So hi, my name is Blake. I'm a professional counselor. Before I did that, I did a lot of work with children's ministry and youth ministry. But since going out of that into the professional counseling world, I do a lot of work with children, with teenagers, and specifically in this time, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of adjustment that I work with.
So it's really great. We're so excited to have you on. Thank you so much for coming on and just kind of joining in this conversation with us about how we can, help our kids during this time.
Absolutely.
So one thing that we've seen, in light of this pandemic, our kids' worlds were turned completely upside down. They were, in a matter of like 2 days, they were out of school, weren't going back, didn't get to say bye to friends, don't get to go outside and play, they just don't get to do anything. And so it was completely like a shut off for them. So I feel like in this pandemic, we've seen a lot of behaviors in our own children that we don't normally see. And so can you kind of help us as we get ready to go back into school, and we know school's going to look different, we know there's going to be different policies in place that are going to affect our children. Can you kind of shed light on some of the behaviors we can expect to see when our kids come home from a day like that?
Right. I think the important thing to note is two things. Number one, not everyone's kid is going to act out or respond in the exact same way. So the behaviors that I might mention might not be the same for some of your parents' kids or the kids that you work with. And number two, not just kids, but we as humans want this thing called homeostasis or balance. And I think in the past 6 to 7 months, we have just been completely thrown off of our equilibrium. So I think it's important for parents to know as well that they too are also desiring this sense of balance and stability, not just with the kids. I think that the main thing, especially going back into school for some of these kids, is not every county is doing it the same, not every school is doing it the same. So some kids might have friends that are going back in August, while they probably aren't going back until September, or maybe not until the second quarter. So even with that, we don't know what that's fully going to look like. But I think it's going to be really important for the parents to know as well is that school has a history of being something that has set routines, set stability, set guidelines, and it could change week to week. So I think the main important thing to know is that flexibility is going to be very important moving forward. I would say that some of the behaviors that we could see, whether it's in the classroom or at home, is maybe kids maybe pushing the boundaries a little bit, maybe talking back, or you might see the opposite. Some kids are maybe a little bit more internal or withdrawn. Maybe they distance themselves. Maybe they go more inward as they are kind of dwelling and asking questions. Maybe kids are tired of asking questions and hearing, I don't know. So they just stop asking. So depending on the kids that we see or work with, it could be very differing responses in that.
Wow, yeah, that's so good to bring that into light, because I feel like too, just working with kids, they crave that stability and they crave routine. They need that. So if the school isn't providing that, how would you advise parents to try to set up a routine outside of school that fills that child's needs where the school may not be able to right now?
Right. Just kind of getting into the routine, some type of schedule with school may see some benefit, even though it might not be exactly the same, but having that routine or schedule will ideally be somewhat helpful. But at home, what I would recommend that some parents do, and what I recommend a lot of the parents of the kids that I work with, is to set a time each week, even if it's just 30 minutes, where whether it's one of the parents and the child or everyone as a family, you guys get together as a family meeting. And it's a time where you have just a list of questions, and it's intentional questions. It's not just yes or no questions, but it's open-ended questions to ask a little bit more about what's going on for you right now. And then I would encourage the parents to answer those questions personally as well. So it just kind of creates this open dialogue, but it also sets this standard that, hey, this time each week, this is time as a family where we're going to come together. And so with everything else that is just so up in the air, we at least know that we have this type of stability. And there are other things too. One thing that I recommend for a lot of parents to do just in terms of fun is you know, it might be hard for families with like 4 or 5 kids, but I recommend that, hey, give each kid a night where, you know, for 30 minutes or an hour, they pick the activity. And like you guys as a family do that. Or hey, if you guys have a day off and they want to go to a park and if it's open and they're able to go out and play, or you guys are able to go outside and throw a ball or play Uno together, but giving them a choice. I think that the root of all anxiety really stems from us trying to control things that are out of our control, and giving the kids a sense of some type of control is going to be really important.
That's so good. I'm so glad you said that because they don't have any control. So I love that, giving them a choice, letting them set the schedule for the night. That's awesome. That's a great thing to you know, add in. So with all of that, you know, like you said, schools are going to be different for every county, for every kid. So trying to bring in a sense of control to the child, letting them ask those questions, and I love that because I feel like so often we negate a child's question because they're a child and we don't feel like they can understand, when in reality they're just a tiny human and they're craving that understanding of why things are going on. So I love that, you know, you're pull them in, let them ask the questions, answer them, be honest with them, have a conversation with your child about it. I think that's great. You know, as we begin to have those types of conversations, they can, for some cases with some children, they can create, you know, a sense of fear or a sense of worry about what's happening. How would you advise parents on coping skills when they see their child worrying about things out of their control, stressing out, allowing fear to kind of rule over them? How would you advise them in that?
Yeah, and kind of going back to the conversation piece, it's such a tightrope walk of inviting them into the discussion, but also making sure that the discussion is age appropriate. You know, you probably shouldn't be telling a 6-year-old every single detail, you know, about all of that, because it's not age appropriate. But so it can be kind of a tricky tightrope walk, but I think that just including them in the conversation is an important piece. But regarding the coping skills, you know, and again, it's kind of like every kid is a little bit different on what works there with them. I think that the most important thing is really defining what we mean by coping. And so, what are we trying to help the child cope with? You might have one kid that's really afraid. You might have one kid that's very angry. You might have one kid that's really nervous or anxious. Whatever the case may be. So coping might look a little bit different. So my number one recommendation would be helping the kid recognizing what they're feeling and what is going on for them. Helping them put a name to what they're feeling or what they're thinking, whatever that case may be. Number 2, trying to normalize that. Maybe sharing a story about how you as a parent felt that way can be a really helpful thing as well.
Yeah, relating to that.
Yeah,
so good.
Absolutely. And then in terms of just activities, depending on what it may be, we know research is very clear that getting some type of exercise, even for just 15 minutes a day, is extremely helpful for reducing depression and anxiety and aggression for a lot of kids. So even just letting them go out and play in a safe space for 15 minutes can be really helpful. I find that doing things tactile with your hands is a really good way to ground yourself. And what I mean by that is to get out of your head and just kind of into your body and where you're at.
Like
there's
coloring, things like that. Just
coloring, coloring, Legos, kinetic sand, anything that you do and play and create, I think is a really important aspect there. There's also a lot of really good apps for people who have smartphones. You can download things like Headspace, Stop, Think, Breathe, Calm. These are really good guided mindfulness and meditative apps, which I think can be really important for a lot of kids that are really struggling with sleep issues and anxiety and stress and worry, to really learn how to try to take control of their body, how to reduce their heart rate and get their breathing under control and learn how to relax their muscles a little bit. So those are just some little things there.
So I love that you're talking about getting them to kind of ground themselves. They're feeling anxious, they're feeling worried, and sometimes when you see that in a kid, they don't know how to, like you said, stop, breathe, and just like, okay, I need to calm down. So the activities are great, coloring Legos, that's fantastic. And one thing that, I feel like parents in general just need to be mindful of, that we, so often forget, I forget as a mom, is that what we express and what we're feeling and what we let out can bubble over into our kids. And that just trickles down. So when we feel stressed, it's important for us to back away, take a minute, breathe, pray, do what we need to do, and then go back into that environment with our child. Because I feel like we definitely have a direct effect over our kids.
Yeah, we are the role model in our kids. Whether they actually realize that they look up to us or not, they look to us to know what is okay, what is not okay, what is acceptable, what is unacceptable.
Right.
But even in those moments where maybe we act out ourselves or do something wrong, we act out in stress or in anger, that can be a really great teaching moment as well. We can pull the kid aside and say, hey buddy, Dad got really upset there. This is what I wish I would have done. But sometimes we all lose our cool, and it's okay. But there can be a really great teaching moment.
Absolutely. It just helps show the kids that we feel stressed too, we're human too, and mommy and daddy mess up too. That's absolutely fantastic. I agree with that. So, going back into this environment of school and, knowing it's going to be different, knowing our kids are going to face different challenges than we've ever faced in school, what would you recommend to parents on how they can feel that child's need that they're not getting filled at school? So not getting to be on the playground as much or getting to sit close to their friends. How can parents fill that need?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think that one of the biggest things that I'd recommend for any adult to do, not just a parent, but maybe even teachers as well, is to help to remind these kids that, hey, you're not alone. A lot of other people are feeling this as well. The biggest thing that I would really recommend to anybody is to do your best to try to stay connected. Even if you can't physically be present with people, trying to stay connected virtually with friends. I know that a lot of people are really hesitant about online games, and I think that regulated gaming is okay. Of course, anything just left to their own devices can be kind of dangerous, but maybe letting the kid have 15 to 20 minutes of extra playtime with their friends in that way. Doing some type of controlled play in some sense, but it is a huge gap that we as just people are all going to be dealing with together. So I think recognizing that we're not doing that alone is really important, because we will be isolated. But we have to remember, even though we feel alone, does not mean that we are alone.
Right, that's so good. That's so good. Letting your child know that you're in it with them, they're not by themselves. That's so good.
Right. And we're going to have to be very creative. We're going to have to be very creative in these
Zoom
ways.
calls, FaceTime. I feel like if it were a time for this to happen, like, we have the technology to stay connected in the middle of the pandemic. And so I definitely agree, keep them connected, not only to you as a parent, but through technology to friends, or even friends in the neighborhood, like you said, controlled play, things like that. I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and I have some kids that I work with who, the parents make sure it's socially distanced, but let the kids go on a bike ride with some of their friends. They're far enough away on a bike, or they're able to go on a walk with some friends while maintaining social distancing, or by wearing a mask. So again, we can be a little bit creative with these things, and it's different. Again, it's not going to be the same. So we're going to feel a little bit of that tension because it's different, but different doesn't always mean bad. I think our natural reflex is different is bad, but we just have to learn how to get used to it after a while. It doesn't mean it's going to be like this forever.
Right.
And I think that's going to be one of the main things that we have to encourage our kids to know as well. It doesn't mean that this is going to be forever, but we have to try to look on the bright side as well. And by not ignoring their feelings in that same way, which is again such a hard tightrope to walk. But I would also encourage the parents to maybe ask the kids, hey, what do you think we can do? Given the parameters and the boundaries that we have to stay in, because kids are very smart and they're very creative. A lot of kids, I'm sure, know how to find the loopholes pretty well. And so a kid might be able to come up with a cooler, more creative idea with how to fill that gap than the parents might be able to.
Absolutely, and that gives them buy-in to what's happening. That gives them buy-in to how the family's going to operate for a little bit. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. Now, I feel like what we see on social media when we talk to other moms and dads, like, I feel like what we see is a massive, just worry or uncertainty about whatever direction they're taking, whether they are doing public school, whether they're doing online or homeschool. I feel like there's a massive, like, for a parent, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? So is there any advice you could give, moms and dads to say, hey, this is how not only you can, you've got this, you're going to make it happen, you're a great mom, dad, we got this going, but this is how you can prepare your child stepping into this. This is some things leading up to the weeks that school's going to open. These are some things you can start putting into place in your own home that will help prepare them better for this.
Sure. Number one, just kind of like what we've been talking about, having the open dialogue, not just with the kids, but also with spouse or grandparents or anybody else involved in the family unit with the kids' education. Number two, and the same thing that I was saying with the kids, I don't want the parents to feel alone either. Before homeschooling became a really considered option just recently, a lot of other parents were doing that. And so there's a lot of online forums, there's a lot of ways to stay connected with other parents that have a little bit of experience in this new territory that a lot of people have not gone through before. So I would really encourage a lot of parents to research that and maybe to reach out in some of these online forums, or if they have a friend or someone else that they know that has done this before, keep in contact with them. Plan a time each week or once a month to just do a call with them and just kind of have a level of accountability, but also just a way that they can stay connected as well, because they're going to need that. I think that the parents need to know that not all of the weight is on their shoulders. We're all in this together. And then the last thing too, for the parents that are deciding that we're going to send our kids back to school, whatever that is going to look like, making sure that the parents and the school remain on the same team. We don't want a divided group here. We're all in this thing together, and if we have school saying one thing, parents saying one thing, the kid is in the middle, what are they going to think? Is mom and dad right? Is the school right? It's just a confusing thing. And so it's just one of those ways to feel some type of stability. Again, it's going to be ever changing. One thing that we're told one week might change a little bit the next week or 2 weeks later, but we have to adapt, we have to be flexible, and we have to be on the same team. It doesn't mean that we have to like it, but it's one of those things that we need to remain in communication and on the same team here.
That's so good. And like you said, this isn't a forever, this is a for now.
Right.
And so for now, we've got to be on that mindset. And I love that, being on the same team with the school, because we've seen that, throughout this entire experience in the medical field. It's always changing, it's uncertain.
Right.
And so just keeping the kids in mind, we're all in it for the kids, we're all in it together, like you said. So it's just, making it happen. Is there anything else you would like to, tell parents or encourage them? Anything else you'd like to say to them?
Sure. I would just say, just keep on doing your best. Don't try to hide anything. If you need help, feel free to ask for it, whether from a friend, from a teacher, from a pastor, or even a therapist, whatever the case may be. Again, we're not in this thing alone, and even though you might think that you're doing a really good job having a strong face for your kid, kids are really receptive, and they pick up on these things. And I would just encourage you guys to ask for the help if you ever do need it, and to remember that you're not alone. So surround yourself with caring friends and family and a good community, because we need that right now more than ever. When we are in this situation where we're literally having to distance ourselves, where we're literally having to lock ourselves in our home for a while and have very limited communication, we have to go the extra mile to stay connected with one another. It's the isolation that will take us down in the long run if we're not careful.
That's so good. That's so good. Just stay connected.
Yes.
Be a part of, a body online.
Right.
Text each other, call each other, get together social distance ways. I've seen several families get in a parking lot and social distance their cars and just sit around and talk and eat together. There's, like you said, we're creative beings, and so there's many ways to stay connected. I love that. So we just want to say, thank you to Blake for joining us today and sharing with us, and thank you to you guys for watching. And just like Blake said, if you have, if you need help, or you need to reach out, you need to talk to somebody, or if you have any further questions for Blake, you can reach out to us at redemptionkids@rttnchurch.com. Send an email in, let us know what's going on, and we'll make sure that we get you the answer that you need or the help that you need. And just remember, we're all in this together. We've got this. It's not forever, it's for now. But thank you guys for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you soon.